nor attacked under any circumstance whatsoever. The archaeological diggings there, the restoration, it's too important historically, too sensitive politically. It was not to be touched, which there's been a lot of interesting, unsubstantiated reports that have come out in recent months now about what really happened, why we didn't go to Baghdad and wipe out Baghdad and get Saddam Hussein when we seemed to have the opportunity in the Gulf War under General Norman Schwarzkopf. Why were the troops suddenly ordered to stop? Why wasn't the war completed? Saddam Hussein is still in power. What really went on? There is many people who claim to have knowledge about this, who declare the reason was Saddam Hussein wasn't in Baghdad at that time. He had already went to his palace in, guess where? Babylon. And the orders from our leaders were, under no conditions must Babylon be touched. And Saddam Hussein figured that out and already left Baghdad and was already in Babylon, 50 miles to the south. And so, not wanting to destroy this archaeological wonder, this new Babylon, the restoration of the city, they didn't press on with tracking down Hussein, be that as it may. Babylon is on the map today. Now, what does Isaiah declare? Isaiah says, Babylon is going to be like Sodom and Gomorrah. And then, again, as you read through the prophecies, he says in Jeremiah 51 concerning Babylon, I will render Babylon and all of the Chaldeans that have done evil in my sight, I am against them. I will destroy them. And he says this, the Lord declares in Isaiah chapter 51, just jot it down if you wish, verse 26. And they shall not take of thee a stone for a corner, nor a stone for foundations, but thou, Babylon, shall be desolate forever, saith the Lord. Interesting. Because in the building of Babylon in the past 15, 16 years, that's exactly what they did do. They took stones from the original Babylon, they excavated original stones, and from the original stones, they rebuilt foundations and portions of walls and parts of Nebuchadnezzar's palace with the stones from the original Babylon. What does God say? God says, they shall not take thee a stone for a corner, nor a stone for foundations, but you shall be desolate forever. Now, what does all this mean? Simply this. There are those that would say Babylon has not yet been destroyed completely in the way that Isaiah chapter 13 and Jeremiah chapter 51 verse 26 says it must be. Therefore, Babylon, that city which is now rebuilt, will in the time of the tribulation become the center of world commerce again. Well, how could that be, the skeptic may say? Why would people care about the Middle East economically? It's a thing called black gold, folks. Remember Jed Clampett? And it could very well be that that is what's going to draw again the economic forces of the world, and Babylon could very well be the center in the tribulation time of the commercial power base that Antichrist will have his grip upon. Keep that in mind. But there's some problems with that theory. It could be, but there's some problems, and we're going to see what the problems are as we go through chapter 18. There's some problems. Stay with me. Verse 1. We're making great time here. Now, after these things, after what things? After the destruction of religious Babylon. So now in chapter 18, gang, we're coming to the very end of the tribulation. In fact, do you realize we're coming to the end of the book of Revelation? It's amazing to me. Got 4 chapters left. And when we finish chapter 22, the rapture happens. Wouldn't that be great? That would be grand. But no, we don't know that for sure. Could be. But after these things, what things? The destruction of religious Babylon, which takes place in the middle of the tribulation. Somewhere in the middle part as we move towards the end. Then I saw another angel coming down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lighted with his glory. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, and has become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. For all nations, now note that, all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. The kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. All nations have had commercial intercourse, economic interaction. All nations are having interaction with this commercial center. Maybe the city of Babylon, or could it be that Babylon is just a name given to another city? But whatever city it is, all the nations, every nation of the world has interaction and is linked to Babylon. I heard verse 4, another voice from heaven saying, Come out of her, my people, that you be not partakers of her sins, that you receive not of her plagues, for her sins have reached unto heaven, and God hath remembered her iniquities. Reward her even as she rewarded you, and double unto her, double according to her works. In the cup which she hath filled, fill her to double. The voice from heaven says, My people, come out of Babylon. Wait, you say, my people? I thought you were saying that the people of the Lord were taken up to heaven before the tribulation described in chapters, 6 through 19. I thought you've been teaching that God's people were taken up to heaven before this tribulation took place. True, we do go to heaven. But keep in mind that once we go to heaven, there is going to be a revival on earth amongst those who have been left behind, who have heard the truth. We'll put K-Apple on automatic pilot. It'll just function automatically, and people will read Bibles that they've left behind, and they'll remember things that you've been sharing, and there will be many converted during the time of tribulation. Tough way to go, but it'll happen. So this is not a reference to a post-trib or a mid-trib rapture. It's just talking to those that have been converted during the tribulation period to not get sucked into the Babylon system. Be careful, the voice of heaven is saying. Folks, if you want to differ with that, if you think that there's going to be a rapture here, that the church goes through the tribulation, you're welcome to that opinion. When the rapture happens, I'll explain to you as we're going up what's taking place, that we're going up before the tribulation comes down. For God has not appointed us to wrath, but to salvation. And Jesus said, pray that you might be found worthy to what? Escape all of these things. Luke 21. What things? The things of the tribulation. Interesting. So, the voice from heaven is talking to those that are now converted to the Lord during that time after we've been taken up. Oh, verse 7, the voice goes on to say, how much she hath glorified herself and lived deliciously. So much torment and sorrow give her. For she, Babylon, saith in her heart, I sit a queen, and am no widow, and shall see no sorrow. She sits as a queen. She chooses to see no sorrow. That is, she lives deliciously. She's surrounded by unbelievable delicacies materially. And she says, I see no sorrow. It doesn't mean that there is no sorrow. It means that Babylon chooses to see no sorrow. What? Kind of like Marie Antoinette in the days of the French Revolution. They came to her and said, Your Highness, the people out there in Paris, they're hurting. They're starving. There's no bread. And what did she say? She was so out of touch in her palace. She said, well, let them eat cake. I mean, she didn't get it. She thought, no bread, let them have cake instead. That wasn't the point. The people were impoverished. They were starving literally. And so too Babylon, with that same Marie Antoinette mentality, will say, I see no evil. Man, the stock market is soaring. The bulls are running. Things are looking fine economically. I see no sorrow. That's Babylon's mentality. And therefore, verse 8, shall her plagues come in one day, death, mourning, famine. She shall be utterly burned with fire. For the strong is the Lord God who judges her, and the kings of the earth who have committed fornication. Live deliciously with her. That is, again, they're in bed with her economically. The kings of the earth who have done this, they've lived deliciously with her, they shall bewail her and lament for her when they shall see the smoke of her burning, standing afar off, verse 10, for the fear of her torment, saying, Alas, alas, that great city Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour is thy judgment come. I have opportunity sometimes to read very old commentaries. It's always amazing. Because when you read commentaries from 100 years ago or 150 years ago, these guys were saying, how could this be a city destroyed in a single hour? That was an absolutely impossible kind of scenario. Even 150 years ago. Not for us. Not now. See, what they're describing here, 1 hour, the whole city is wiped out. It's up in smoke, and we won't go near to it because we might become tormented in the same disaster. We now know that speaks very possibly of a nuclear detonation. 1 hour. Any city, 1 hour. Any country, 1 hour. The known world as we know it really can be blown up, wiped out. And the torment, if any city is indeed attacked, hey, stay away because fallout will torment you if you get too close, you see. Oh, John, where you been? Don't you know that we're in good days, good times now? The nuclear weapons that threatened us a few years ago no longer do. Hey, the Cold War is over. Haven't you been reading your paper? Haven't you? This was in the paper 4 days ago. Russia revives first strike policy on nuclear warheads. The article, which I don't have time to read in depth right now, simply says that for the first time in her history, Russia is saying that she will launch nuclear weapons first if she feels threatened. This has never been admitted before by the Russians or the Soviets who preceded them. The doctrine has always been, we will not use weapons first. We will only use them if they're used against us. But things are getting increasingly tense, even as we hear things are cooling off. It's a mixed deal over there. And in a very careful statement, they went out of their way to declare their new doctrine is, yes, we will, in light of the developments of NATO, the expansion of NATO, we will use nuclear weapons preemptively, first strike. And this certainly indicates from the description that there is going to be a nuclear detonation against Babylon. What's going to happen? Oh, the kings are wailing. They can't believe it. All the nations, the leaders are saying, oh no. Why? Check out this, folks. Verses 11 through 14. Check it out with me. The merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn because no man buyeth their merchandise anymore. No more Bloomingdales. No more I-Magnums. No more Saks Fifth Avenue. What are we going to do? Check out. It's a description of a department store. Check this out. Verse 12. The merchandise of, number one, gold, silver, precious stones, and pearls. It's your jewelry section. In this blasting of Bloomingdale's or Babylon, oh no. The jewelry section in this huge department store kind of description wiped out. And then we go from the jewelry section, we go to the clothing department. No more fine linen, purple, silk, scarlet. Those are all descriptions of fine, luxurious clothing items. So no more jewelry section, no more fine clothing. And then we go into housewares and furniture. Thyine wood, verse 12 goes on to say, which was used in classic furniture in Bible days. No more thyine wood, no more vessels of ivory, vessels of the most precious wood, brass, iron, and marble. It's furniture and it's kitchen utensils of the finest grade. So you have the jewelry department burned up, the furniture department wiped out, the clothing department, and then it gets worse. We go into cosmetics. Verse 13, cinnamon, odors and ointments and frankincense. All of those things were used as ointments and spices for the body. It's perfumes. Gone. Gone. The cosmetics are gone. And then we go into the gourmet food items. Now the next section, wine, oil, fine flour, wheat, beasts. We're talking beasts there. We're talking Chris's Steakhouse. We're talking the good meat. So the wine and the fine flour and the big sizzling steaks and sheep, gone. The gourmet food section. And then we go to the automotive department. Horses and chariots. Oh, no more Broncos and Mustangs and you know, it's gone. Oh no. How could this be? The chariots, the horses, man. Gone. And then we get the basement. Bloomingdale's basement. The adult bookstore section. Slaves, as your margin renders it rightly, bodies and souls of men. People selling their bodies, selling their soul for sexual, sensual pleasure. Now, the thing to note here in this Bloomingdale's of Babylon is none of these items are necessities. They are all luxuries. Everything listed here deals with a city, a society that has gone materialistically mad. Nothing is needed. They're intrigued by ever finer gourmet food and better furniture and the latest cosmetics and clothes imported and chariots and cars and even buying bodies and trashing and destroying people in the process for sexual reasons. What a description. So the people are mourning, oh no, Babylon is destroyed, and where are we going to now get our cars and get our fine foods and our pornography and all the things that we have been intrigued by? Verse 14, the fruits that thy soul lusted after are departed. And all the things which were dainty and goodly are departed. And thou shalt find